Hello and welcome everybody. I am Phil Tomlinson from the University of Bath and I'm the editor of the Policy Debate section of the academic journal Regional Studies. Thank you for joining us today for this very special award ceremony, which is the Regional Studies Editorial Board's best paper published in Policy Debates for 2020. Policy Debates is a periodic section in Regional Studies which provides a forum for interdisciplinary analysis and debate about important policy issues of international relevance in urban and regional development. In doing so, it connects academic and practitioner communities by exploring the interface between academic debate and policy design, implementation and results. We publish papers that engage with major strands of contemporary policy thinking and that improve our understanding of how and why regional policies work or they don't. As a result, papers published in Policy Debates are generally highly cited and receive a high number of downloads, not only by scholars, but also by policy practitioners and policy think tanks. I'm delighted to announce that the award for Best Paper in Policy Debates for 2020 goes to Professor Philip McCann from the University of Sheffield for his paper entitled Perceptions of Regional Inequality and the Geography of Discontent, Insights from the UK. This is an excellent and truly insightful paper that ticked all the boxes required and more for publication in Policy Debates. It was salient, novel, analytical, accessible, and highly stimulating. The paper examined the issue of UK interregional inequality. What the editors particularly liked about this paper was its starting point, which was a media debate between commentators Andrew Neil and Jeremy Vine, which was based upon a recent report on interregional inequality in The Economist magazine and a subsequent rebuttal by the Full Fact website. What Philip's paper did was a great lesson not only for social scientists, but also policymakers, politicians and journalists and all those who use data metrics to justify their position. Essentially, Philip's paper adopted a scientific and rigorous approach to unpick the data and the different spatial units of analysis and the different measures on interregional inequality that were used in the media debate. And it did say, not only for the UK, but also for 30 other OECD countries. And after doing this, the conclusion is clear. The UK is one of the most regionally unbalanced countries in the industrialized world. Not only is this a very important conclusion in its own right, especially in the context of the UK's levelling up agenda, but the study highlights the importance of interpreting data and metrics correctly. And this is obviously critical for policy making. So on behalf of Regional Studies, welcome Philip McCann and many congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Phil, and thank you to the Regional Studies Association and the Journal Regional Studies and the editorial team, of which you are obviously a key part. I'm really honoured to receive this award. I was absolutely delighted when I got the news. Maybe I could just say a few words about the paper itself, if that would be okay. It's quite an unusual paper in terms of it's not a typical paper that I would normally write. And actually, that's part of the appeal of it for me. You are right, it was in response to a debate between journalists, and these are very high-level journalists working for frontline news organizations, national media in the UK. And it was one of those things that ended up in the Twitter sphere. Now, I don't do any of that. I don't do Twitter or anything. But I was aware of it, but only in the kind of back of my mind. It wasn't something I took particularly seriously because, you know, people are discussing things all the time on Twitter and I tend to ignore most of it. But in this case, it was a curious case. What happened was I started getting contacted by various people, including academic scholars, co-authors, journal editors, and also people in high-level ministries and institutions in the UK and elsewhere. Also, some people from other countries were aware of this and started contacting me saying, is this correct? I don't understand this. This seems to be different to things that you've argued before. Why are these conclusions arising? And as I say, I kind of ignore this stuff. I tend not to respond to these kind of discussions out in the Twitter sphere. But in the end, I was persuaded by enough people that actually maybe I need to start putting some structure on the argument. And in the end, several people said to me, you've got to do this. You've got to respond to this, because this is actually going quite a long way. It's influencing how people are thinking about these issues. And it was starting to be picked up in many different arenas. And it's an issue I feel very strongly about, because as you know, I'm someone who's worked a lot with these data. I work directly in conjunction with people in Eurostat, the European Commission, particularly the OECD, who I've worked with many, many years. I know the people who build these data sets. So I understand the thinking behind them. Now, no data is perfect, as you know well, Phil, working on industrial policy, these kind of issues, but you work with what you've got. And behind all data, there is a logic and a methodology. And it's really important to understand those things in order to understand what it is you're working with. What are the tools and the kind of materials we're working with? You really got to understand them in order to understand how to move on in terms of analysis and policy advice. And that's where it came from. So it was an unusual origin. And I worked very, very hard on it and trying to articulate it. And actually what came out very quickly, I realized that this was not a UK specific argument. I used the UK because it's the context in which the debate was first framed and kind of broke into the media. But actually it's a more general problem that all countries need to think about how we understand data, different territorial units data, the way that data is constructed. And the other element which is really important is we know this kind of notion of the geography of discontent, as you know, was a phrase I originally coined immediately after Brexit, and it was picked up by the European Commission, the OECD, the Brookings Metro Programme, and so on. But that's fundamentally about perceptions. And here what struck me was the lack of understanding on the part of the perceptions who are influencers and thought leaders and journalists and so on. There were many people having debates, and I was made aware of not only the protagonist that I referred to in the paper, but then a lot of subsequent comments, including by academics, that themselves were not correct. And it was really, I really felt this was getting out of hand, and somebody needed to put some structure on it. And I'm very, very proud with how the paper came out. I was just, in the end, really delighted with it. So to win this award is just a fantastic feeling, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Can I just ask, have you shared the paper with the original protagonist of the debate, The Economist and Full Fact, or
even Andrew Neil? I don't do all that stuff. I'm one of these people who has no social media profile whatsoever, and I've stuck rigidly to that rule. That's just me. So no, I don't share anything, but I make everything public. I mean, all my publications, everything's public information, I talk regularly to newspapers and so on, or magazines, technical ones. If they're asking information on things, I'll send them evidence, I'll send them data. I'll often point people in the direction. If you need to identify the data on this, this is the source, whether it's ONS, OECD, World Bank, whatever. So I do that general, but I haven't specifically sent stuff because I don't do that.
Okay, thank you. Just to point out to everybody that Philip's paper was published online in 2020, and since then it has had an incredible 17,500 views and 129 academic citations in just a year. It also has a highly impressive altmetric score of 105. So the message is getting out there, Philip. So well done. So thank you again, and many congratulations. And at this point, I'd just like to thank all the reviewers and other contributors to policy debates and regional studies over the last 12 months. It has been an incredibly difficult year for everybody, especially with the COVID pandemic, and your support is most appreciated. Regional studies continues to go from strength to strength, and this year regained the coveted ABS 4 ranking. And in policy debates, we're looking to publish more innovative, policy-facing and salient papers that seek to shape regional and urban policy debates. Full details of the types of paper we accept are on the Regional Studies Journal website. Thank you for joining us virtually today, and I hope to see you in person at a Regional Studies event soon. Goodbye.